It's really critical that we continue to enhance and develop curiosity and imagination. At the same time, there's always risk with any new technology, but we have to realize the enormous advantages that AI provides us. Now, their challenge is, given this, to evaluate it and to improve it. And their evaluation will be on their cognitive skills, which will be the evaluation, and their creativity. How can they improve it in a creative way?
Welcome to the Coursera podcast, where we have conversations with renowned experts and industry leaders to explore global trends impacting the future of education and work. I'm your host, Arunav Sinha, Vice President of Global Communications at Coursera. Creativity has always been a uniquely human trait, but in the age of AI, that's changing fast. In today's episode, we are asking, what does it mean to be original when machines can generate poems, paintings, and even business plans? How do we teach creativity in a world of generative tools? And how do we keep human imagination at the center as we adapt to this new technology? To help us unpack these questions, I'm joined by someone uniquely positioned to offer insights. Dr. Jerry Wind is the Lauder Professor Emeritus and Professor of Marketing at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. A trailblazer in marketing science, he has spent decades helping organizations unlock a strategic innovation, and now he's channeling that expertise into understanding the future of creativity. Jerry, welcome to the Coursera podcast.
Thank you. And it's a delight to be with you on the podcast.
Absolutely. The pleasure is ours. Jerry, you have an extraordinary career driving strategic innovation in business and marketing. Why focus now on creativity, and how has your thinking evolved over time?
Great question. First of all, it's not new. I've always focused on creativity. My first book, going back before you were born, in 1968, was on advertising measurement and effectiveness. And obviously, advertising always had a creative element to it. One of my other early books was Product Policy, that focused on new product development and product policy, which had very strong emphasis on creativity and innovation. But I was involved, as you know, with a number of initiatives like the development of the Wharton MBA curriculum, like establishing the Lauder Institute, starting Wharton School Press, and a variety of other initiatives, both at Wharton and with various companies. And I realized that the major obstacle to innovation in most companies and organizations have been the mental models of the people involved. They're sticking with the status quo, the reluctance to challenge the status quo, which led me to write the book with Colin Crook on the power of impossible thinking. And the book really was focused on how do you break this traditional hold on the status quo, on traditional mental models. And this led me then to develop a course on creativity at the MBA. And there was an elective course which I taught for over a dozen years. So there is a long history to my interest in creativity.
Absolutely. And as you rightly said, creativity is a lot about pushing the boundary and just breaking the mental models. What role do you think human imagination should play in a world of Gen AI? And what risk do you see in over relying on machines? Because as you can imagine, on one side it can inspire, but it's also on the other side make us extremely lazy. So how do we strike a balance?
It's a great question. I think that wrong imagination has never been as critical as it is today. Basically, everything that we saw in science fictions years ago now is a reality. Think about the digital watch we were. Think about the electric car, flying cars. It's almost every conceivable idea in science fiction, which was at the time was pure imagination, is now a reality. And the capabilities are beyond description, especially with advances in science and technology. So I think it's really critical that we continue to enhance and develop curiosity and imagination. At the same time, there's always risk with any new technology, with any area there's risk. There's risk of ethical abuse, there's concern of people abusing the system. But I think that we have to realize the enormous advantages that AI provides us. I'll give you a simple example that relates to anyone in the education field. There's huge concern about plagiarism. right after ChatGPT, I think it was the education department in New York, it was either city or state, and basically gave a ban on using ChatGPT, which is absurd. It's absurd, basically, to do it. What you have to do is you have to think creatively. How can you use ChatGPT? My solution is very simple. I wrote a little editorial about this. Any assignment you give the student, ask them first of all to select the generative AI platform. So specify what are the probes that they're going to use to get an answer and report the answer. This is the beginning. Now their challenge is, given this, to evaluate it and to improve it, and their evaluation will be on their cognitive skills, which will be the evaluation, how smart is the evaluation, and their creativity. How can they improve it in a creative way? And this way, you achieve the dual objective. On the one side, they learn how to use the technology as opposed to being afraid of it. And at the same time, you measure what really counts, their cognitive ability and creativity.
That sounds like sound advice. But here is a little bit of a challenge, and you have seen this field for a long time, Jerry. So tell me a little bit about, do you really see Gen AI can amplify human creativity with respect to marketing output? For example, great marketing campaigns, great advertising campaigns, they are often grounded in very unique customer insights and customer problems. And then they are articulated in a very sticky, sometimes funny, emotive way, and your product is sometimes positioned within the context of that problem. Again, in a way that is very subtle and yet powerful. These are all sort of, they sound easy, but they're complex problems. Do you think Gen AI can truly amplify and supplement human creativity to advance some of these marketing fields?
Let's break it down. So, what can AI do effectively here? They can do better analysis of existing data than any human can do. Got an amazing capability of analyzing the data, the patterns, in a fraction of the time that it takes you. So, the traditional research that you have a whole research department looking for other examples of what happened and finding out did it work, didn't it work. AI can do it in the seconds for you. I view AI as a very smart assistant, as opposed to asking before a bunch of people who work for me to try to go and select from me information about consumer insight and trends and all the other kind of analysis that we used to do. Use AI for this. Start it. And you should use AI like with a smart assistant by interacting with the AI system. Not just give one probe and get the answer and run with this, but interact, ask them to improve on this, ask questions around this, and then use this as insight for the creative person. These are the human ingenuity of the people who came with the creative insight that led to the success of Nike or Apple in this specific case. But AI can help enormously by identifying analogies. In the book, for example, we're using morphological analysis. We're showing how AI can help you identify new attributes, and within each attribute, identify new characteristics. We're showing how they can help you in selecting analogies. But all of this is input to the human, and it's really human centered AI. The big innovation in AI that goes years ago goes back to the Stanford initiative that focused on human centered AI. And that's what we're using in the creativity, especially in the book. In the course, we are referring to a number of examples of AI. But given the recent advances in AI and the speed of the advances, I felt that we need the book to augment the course and provide the focus on how AI can help you turbocharge each one of the 12 sets of approaches that I'm describing in the course and the book.
So let's talk a little bit more about your new course, Creativity in Business and Other Disciplines. The course brings together ideas from several industries to help learners unlock their creative potential. What was your vision when designing the course, and how do you hope it shifts the way people think about creativity?
The vision for the course was very simple. I believe that everyone, regardless of profession, regardless of age, regardless of nationality, can enhance their creativity. That every organization can enhance their creativity if they use the right approaches that help them challenge the status quo and come up with new, not only new, but actually valuable ideas. Because, creativity really requires both the novelty, but also the usefulness, the ability to create value. So if this is the case, the course was really motivated by how can we reach wide audiences around the world in different profession and ages? They will be able to have access to those different approaches. Typical books on creativity focus on one approach that somebody's trying to promote. Here we're trying to focus on 12 sets of approaches, encourage people to use these approaches experimentally, to experiment with them, use the approaches to create a personalized portfolio, a toolkit of the approaches that they can use regardless what challenges they have personally or professionally, and to provide them inspiration on the use of creative approaches. And to provide the inspiration, I went to different disciplines. So, for example, the course covered, first of all, we covered the music, opera, art, and dance. Second, we cover architecture and design. Then we cover science, medicine, and engineering. Then we cover games, advertising, and marketing. And then the final lesson is on business and entrepreneurship, and with special lessons from the startup nation, given the amazing innovation that came out of Israel in the last few decades. So that's basically the structure. And I selected people who thought they'll be great role models with their experience and what they've done in each one of these areas.
So I want you to talk about that. How did you bring that vision and inspiration to life by inviting insights from incredible thinkers like Tommy Hilfiger, astronaut Story Musgrave, Nobel laureate Drew Weissman, and many more? Why was it important to include such a wide range of perspectives? And was there a story or idea from one of your guests that reshaped how you think about creativity?
The reason for this goes to what we just discussed. I wanted to inspire people. I wanted to provide people inspiration of all ages and professions to be creative, to experiment with the different approaches. And I thought I will never be able to do it if I just give them examples from my area of expertise. So, luckily enough, I have a rich network of friends. And I just contacted friends in different areas. Most of these 60 people are really friends that agreed to share their experience with our learners. What I've learned is it's hard to pinpoint a specific lesson from a specific person because I learned from every one of them. I learned, in a sense, the lesson that I learned here relate to the importance of challenging the status quo. It really was more reinforcing what I knew before, provide real reinforcement, how critical it is to reinforce the challenge, the current status quo and challenge the mental models you have. The importance of being courageous, having the courage to experiment with these new things and do new things, despite the odds that you have. We describe Uriel Reichman, who started Reichman University in Israel, the only private not-for-profit university in Israel against a huge cartel of all the government-sponsored university. Unbelievable courage to do it and vision, and imagination to try to come up with new educational system. We talked with the persistence, kind of Dr. Weisman, who created the vaccine for COVID. Over 20 years, he worked on this discovery that led eventually to the vaccine. So there are tons of examples. Every one of the 60 guest speakers we have provide really insightful insight into what is creativity, how it applies in different areas, which I think that will be very inspirational to our readers. And all of them will augment the beginning of the course. The first, there's a short introduction, but then the next two lessons focus on the 12 sets of approaches for creativity. And then the rest of the book is really the different disciplines and examples of those 60 people.
That's a fantastic, Jerry, a star cast that you've assembled, these kind of global thinkers from all around the world. And I think it's so important to bring these stories, bring these insights live from people who actually practice this on day-to-day basis. In fact, is that what inspired you to have a companion book? And what was the process like? What will readers find in the book that builds or expand on the course?
Now, the companion book was really inspired by the development in AI in the recent years. In the course itself, we have 4 out of the 60 sessions that focus on AI. But the enormous advances in especially generative AI and currently more in agentic AI really required kind of more attention that we gave originally in the course. And I thought that a companion book that focuses only on the 12 sets of approaches and for each one of them suggest how we can use AI to turbocharge the approach will be appropriate. So the companion book is very simple. It has four foundation chapters that talk about the what is creativity, the foundation of creativity in neuroscience and in psychology. How do you overcome, kind of obstacles to creativity, and what is AI? Kind of to those who are not familiar with it. If you're familiar with all of these, keep all of these first part foundation and go directly to the next 12 chapters that focus each one of the 12 sets of approaches we discuss in the course. So it's a truly companion.
Got it, got it. And so, one of the big ideas in both your course and book is cultivating adaptive experimentation, particularly for leaders in business, government, and education. Can you unpack what that means and why it's an important skill for leaders?
Well, it goes back to my philosophy, I think, ever since my first day as a faculty member and in all my publications. I believe that the only way to find out causal relationship, what is the impact of any initiative you do, is through experimentation. Experimentation, I don't just think about the FDA, at least the old FDA, when to improve a drug, what you need a control group and you have to measure the test versus control to see to what extent it's effective. The other benefits of this is it forces measurement. You have to measure. It encourages you to deal with more innovative breakthrough ideas because there's no sense testing something which is like 5%, kind of higher budget than the previous year. You want to start experimenting with really more bold, innovative ideas. It helps create a culture of experimentation, a culture of innovation in the company. It helps you attract more talented, more creative people who are willing to experiment and do things differently. And to the extent that you are coming with more innovative initiatives, which are more than just simple A B testing, but a more complex one, you really confuse the competition, which gives you a huge competitive advantage because competitors cannot read what you're doing without knowing on the experimental design that you have. And if you look at the evidence, all major, most successful companies, if you think about Google, you think about Amazon, they're conducting thousands of experiments every day. Everything they do is a result of experimentation. And it's crazy that still so many organizations, and not only businesses, organizations, just do things and not have the discipline of running this as an experiment that allows them to measure what is the real impact of what they're
You
doing.
have seen the rise and fall of companies, means rise and fall of brands, different approaches to marketing from sort of very gut led to very data science oriented. And then you talked about the importance of experimentation and creativity. Do you foresee any role for intuition at all? Means there are people who may be very close to a customer problem, have a great sense of it, may not be able to articulate or see this in data, and yet they have this incredible empathy that can be harnessed. How do you see, is there a role, and how do companies strike a balance?
First of all, you're absolutely right. It's an incredibly important aspect that we should recognize. In my book on the power of impossible thinking, I have a whole chapter that focuses on intuition. Intuition is a summary of your experience. It may not be able to articulate it, but it's a summary of all your experiences. I'll take a footnote here on the finding that Marty Seligman, who is the founder of positive psychology, came up in a study they did. They did a study asking very creative people of all ages, when is the most creative time of your life? You know what the answer was? Unanimously, all of them said now, regardless of their age. How do you explain it? Typically, people believe creativity is a young person. And the answer is very simple. Creativity is a function of once you have to have insight. In some disciplines like math, pure math, there is probably a limit. And, if you're 30, you might be too old for this. But in most fields, the creativity is also a function of your experience, the number of other disciplines, the number of other areas you can bring together on the problem. You give me a problem in area A, but I can relate it to something from a totally different discipline. So the older you are, the more wide your range of experience. And intuition is a way of expressing it. So I don't view it as either or. I think what we need to focus on is a combination of rely on your intuition, rely on your imagination, rely on your curiosity on the one side, but augment it with data. There is enormous amount of data out there with analytical capabilities. AI definitely helps us in this area and merge the two. But merge them on trying to solve really creative area. I'm working with two colleagues now on primarily rethinking to some extent marketing strategy because marketing as a discipline is in trouble. If you look at the role of CMO, many companies are changing the role of CMOs. Most CMOs don't really sit at the corporate strategy table. Their life expectancy is typically less than 2 years. And part of this is that the marketing discipline became focused on either the quantitative side, and especially the academic marketing, you have the quantitative side, the modeling side, and then you have the consumer behavior side, the behavioral. They forgot that the strategy area, why are we doing it? What is the challenge we're trying to address? And why isn't marketing really addressing important society issues? How do we address the poverty around the world? How do we address climate changes around the world? Kind of a sense, we can do it if you bring things together, if you bring the quantitative and the qualitative, if you bring the consumer behavior inside, the intuition and the tools. So that's basically what I'm trying to do in the course and in the book is to provide more of an integration of the two worlds, the imagination, the search for curiosity, the intuition, together with the value that AI can bring to the table.
You have often said that creativity starts with unlearning, and that also, to some extent, pointing to the fact that we often come with like standard paradigm that we need to learn, but with pressure on marketing departments and CMOs to be far more productive, it's time to unlearn. What's the assumption or belief you personally had to let go, and how do you help others do the same?
Okay, I'll give you a personal example. One of my areas of interest and passion is art. I'm on the Philadelphia Museum of Art board, number of other art organizations. I've been an art collector for years. And all my focus until about 10 years ago has been contemporary art. I frequently, whenever I travel, I go to local museum, but I used to go to the modern art and contemporary art sections of the museum and basically ignore the other stuff. About 10 years ago, I met my current wife, who is an amazing interior designer and is on the board of the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art. Her whole interest is primarily in the classics, and our home became a combination of classical tradition of the building, the furniture, and some of the art, but mingled together with my contemporary art. When we get socially with some of her colleagues, they're all basically from the classical tradition. And suddenly I realized art is not only contemporary art, that, was basically, I had a very narrow view of art. I interpreted everything in terms of only the contemporary art, and I missed a huge opportunity of realizing the benefits of going back to the classic, understanding classical art and architecture, and it changed completely the way I look now at a piece of art. And the interesting thing is, when you look at the art in our house, the same piece that before in my previous house, which was all contemporary, white walls, designed for art. Here, the art is part of a more classical interior design and structure. And the same piece of art, the contemporary art, looks by far better in this environment than it used before. And I think the same applies to every one of us. We all feel comfortable in what we do. That's the reason we feel comfortable with the current mental models we have, with the status quo. We have to break out of it. We have to break out. There are many, the book we discuss, and the course we discuss different approaches to challenge mental models and challenge the status quo. But you have to break out of this because that's what will give you really new insight and ability to make things better and different.
Yeah, embrace the unknown, embrace the untraveled. And, this kind of cross disciplinary exposure is something which, also to a great extent, Jerry, is the promise of online learning, right? Because the barriers to learning is so low now that you can really learn from different fields and enrich your entire approach to both your work and life in some ways.
But you're raising a great point because the challenge is not the availability of this. The challenge is how do you motivate the learner to explore other areas? Go back to my art example. I had zero incentive until I met my current wife to go in the museum and look at old masters. I looked at them for
You always need a good teacher. That emphasizes the
right,
point that you need a teacher.
but it's a different role of the teacher.
That's right. Now, you have raised concerns about how traditional education emphasizes memorization over imagination. If you could redesign education from the ground up, what would a more creativity focused system look like?
Well, you're dealing with one of my kind of areas of passion. About 10 years ago, I co founded, together with QS, the global competition of the Reimagine Education. And we get over every year over 1,000 applications from close to 100 countries on innovation in the education area. So we've been running it now, I think it's the 11th year, and we probably have seen over 15,000 applications of everyone believed is reimagining education. Unfortunately, most of them, the vast majority of them, are playing and tweaking a little bit here or there aspect of education. And what I think we really need is we need to truly reimagine education. So let me give you some examples. Why are we focusing on 4 year undergraduate or 2 years MBA? We're really dealing with the need for lifelong education, especially given the advances in technology, the changes in the world that's happening. Is it really believe that in today's environment, the same model that worked hundreds of years ago, like 4 year basics training, will prepare you for life? Don't we have to rethink what are the implications of lifelong education is to the basic assumption we have our offering? This 4 years undergraduate or 2 years MBA is really the right approach. Second, we're still relying on classroom. Why not take advantage of the flipped classroom that was developed by the Khan Academy and others, which has huge advantages because the flipped classroom allows you, especially when you link it with technology, I can actually use AI to teach any learner the content. I can teach an AI system, and we're actually experimenting with this now using Want AI, one of the leading AI companies. We're experimenting on teaching AI the content, how to teach the content, and how to evaluate the content. And the person can learn, use AI, use their smartphone and or desktop and learn 24/7 in any language and in any mode of learning that they learn the best in. And the role of the faculty is now not the source of knowledge, but the faculty now can become the motivator, the mentor who help the learner implement the knowledge. And we know that experiential learning is the best way of learning, not sitting in a classroom and passively listening. So you can actually think about switching from the traditional classroom amphitheater style, which encourages lecture, to a setting when the person learns the content on their own at home or any place, sitting outside in a nice day, and then setting that allow them to come together and implement the knowledge. Or think about assessment. Why are we still requiring mostly memorizing in testing? Why won't we start thinking about alternative ways, more real time feedback to people about what they're doing? You know, think about the structure of education. Do we really believe that knowledge was given to the world in a cluster of a semester, which is, let's say, 12, 13 weeks? Twice a week for 80 minutes. That's the way knowledge was given. No, it's for the convenience of the administrators. It had nothing more to do with learning. Why not free ourselves from the constraint of the administrator that dictating the structure of education and create structures that allow the learner to learn the specific topic in the best, most effective way? And we can continue on and on. The point is, everything we do today in education is driven either teacher centric or administrative centric. Education should be switched completely to think about how do we center the learner and what is our objective with education, and think about this in terms of lifelong education. Think about enhancing and think about the content of education. You see more and more focus on we want to make sure that we have competence skills, that we focus on competencies and employable skills. The big sign is employable skill. But what about the things such as the value of the traditional liberal art provided? What about understanding of truth? understanding what science is, understanding ethics, understanding, how to listen to other people. We have a society now which is totally divided. And why people don't listen to the other side? Everyone listens only to their side. Why isn't education actually bringing us at least the ability to listen to the other side and come together with the other side and come up with a win-win solutions? I think that our current crisis, we started by the fact how crazy the world is. It's a large extent the failure of our educational system. We're not developing people, the whole person, to understand how do you behave as a human? How, what are the ethical values? What do you want to do? So I think we really need desperately in this country and other countries as well around the world, we need to rethink education in a sense and challenge everything we do today in the educational system.
You are giving a lot to think about to both educators and institutions. And as we wrap up, I want to come to the role of individuals. You highlight the role of courage and persistence and creativity for someone who feels stuck or is facing rejection. What would you say to help them push through?
Wow. I'm not sure that what I'm going to suggest can help everyone because being stuck is probably a symptom of some other problems. So I would go back to reflect, why am I stuck? Why can't I do it? Try to almost be reflective and self analyze. Why am I stuck in this area? Is it me? Is it the environment? Don't I get the right support? Try to do a detailed analysis, like a quasi post-mortem on the whatever situation you're dealing with, or why are you stuck? And then try to identify how can you, some of the areas that you identify. If it's lack of support, if you're dealing with an employer that is not willing to listen to you, ask yourself the question, is this really a company I want to be with? Should I look for another career? Should I move somewhere else? If this is because the people I work with are not supportive of the idea, or can I ask to move to another unit or something else? So that's one way I would suggest to do is really a deep analysis, kind of reflect and analyze why are you stuck. The second, and then obviously once you know why you're stuck, how do you use any of the approaches in the book to try to help you get out of this? So any one of the 12 sets of approaches we have, and especially challenge red on miles, will help you identify approaches that can get you unstuck. But then the other thing I would suggest is follow your passion. Select an area that you're really passionate about. Might not be in work, whatever area that you feel you're stuck, but move to another area. Leave the side the area you're stuck in. Select an area you're really passionate about. Select a small area, manageable area that you could do something about it, and design an experiment around how to challenge this area, how to reinvent, how to reimagine this area you're passionate about. Again, use any of the approaches in the course to try to help you identify the solution to this area you're passionate about, and then design an experiment and do it. And hopefully, by doing it, you'll find out success and fulfillment in the new areas, and you'll be able to overcome this feeling of, oh, I'm stuck, I cannot do anything.
That's a wonderful note to conclude, Jerry. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having me. I think it's really an important topic. Creativity by coming with new approaches that add value is really a key to addressing many of the personal and professional challenges facing our society today and any individual. And the other real benefit of being more creative and coming up with approaches which avoid the being stuck, but approaches that are actually achieving something and makes you more fulfilled, it will help you be happier and more fulfilled, and you'll have fun in the process. It's fun to be creative and to create something new, impactful, that makes a difference.
To our listeners, you can explore Dr. Wynn's new course, Creativity in Business and Other Disciplines, on Coursera.org this August. Whether you're a student, professional, or lifelong learner, the course is packed with exercises, stories, and frameworks to help you spark new ideas, challenge old habits, and reimagine how you think and work. If you enjoyed this episode of the Coursera podcast, please rate, review, and share. Until next time, I'm Arun Avsanath. Thank you for tuning in.